Ancestors, ancestral healing, ancestral clearing. What an amazing conversation. I'm just looking so forward to talking to you around understanding ancestors and how it impacts our lives, especially as we plan our second stage, how they show up. If we talk ancestors, who are we talking about and what are we referring to?
Well, in this space, we're referring to imprints from the past.
Hilda Lunderstedt founded and grew one of South Africa's most successful nutraceutical companies. She has won multiple awards for her dedication to entrepreneurship and empowerment. She founded and leads her second stage, a global movement helping accomplished women find belonging and deeper meaning in midlife. Elizabeth Kipp is a stress management and trauma recovery specialist who overcame over 40 years of chronic pain herself. She's now an international best-selling author and coach, helping people break free from addiction, betrayal trauma, and anxiety to reclaim their healing power and thrive.
And ancestors traditionally ancestral clearing is all imprints from the past. Ancestors is generally those that came before us, the people that came before us. In ancestral clearing, we're actually referring to the past, which includes things that happened to us in this lifetime. But what we find is if they're still sticking around in terms of an imprint, they have a root in the past. There's an expression, it's just like, how do I know? There's an expression, if it's hysterical, it's historical. So I love that because it makes it so simple.
I asked you, how do we even know if it's coming from past lifetimes or the ancestors?
Well, we know that it's coming from the past, likely coming from the past if we have that big charge around it. Now, I want to be very careful here because the quantum physics, I have a foot in science and a foot in the spiritual world. I kind of bridge those. And I'm not a physicist, but I've studied biology and evolution and I study physics. I'm not a physicist, right? But the quantum physicists tell us a couple of things, but lots of stuff. But in this regard, they tell us we can access the past, present, and future all through the present moment. That implies a lot. Because people come to me and they go, well, this thing I'm experiencing, is it from my ancestors or is it from, the collective or where is it coming from? And my answer is, it depends. It depends, right? So imagine our lives are like the Russian nested dolls where you've got a little doll and a next doll and a bigger doll and you've got all that. And the first doll, the one on the inside is us and just our as a singular being. And then there's the family, is the next doll out is the family. And then the next one is maybe the town where we live, the culture that we live in, then the country we live in, then and then we've got the ancestral piece. It's the last, right? It's the last nested doll. So that's a lot of layers that we're carrying all at once, right? So when somebody says, where's it from? I'm like, I actually can't tell you. However, it's right here, right now. So let's work with it. And we always include the ancestral piece.
So is ancestral clearing and ancestral healing the same thing?
Great question. So ancestral healing is a large field of all kinds of different practitioners that are coming at healing our ancestral burden from all different angles. And there's lots of different ways that shamans come in and do it their way. Daniel Foer's got a way that he comes in. There's all different rituals. Ancestral clearing is a registered and trademarked healing modality that was originally pioneered by Howard Wills and then was later further developed and is taught by John Newton of Health Beyond Belief. So I'm one of his practitioners. I took his training in 2014 and I've been in the work ever since.
So ancestral healing encompasses multiple modalities. Ancestral clearing is one of a modality. Part of this multiple or a modality?
It's one modality under ancestral healing.
Okay.
We don't really very careful in ancestral clearing not to use the word healing because it is classified as energy medicine in the medical, but we're not doctors. We're practitioners. And so we're being very careful about like making sure that our space, we're respecting everybody else's space.
Why should a woman who's planning their second stage take cognizance of ancestral clearing?
Well, at that stage in our life, their children are growing up and moving on out of the house. So we become empty nesters or we're moving in that direction. Or we've got maybe teenagers in the house that are discovering their own thing and they're really kind of separating. They're separating themselves from us. They're not quite so attached to us as, mom. Right. And also we're going through menopause, which is a huge psychobiological shift that has profound, it's not my specialty, but obviously, but it has profound effects on us. And my own experience was that my energy changed. How I was creating and where that creation was coming from shifted once I went through menopause. I'm practicing yogi and, we work with the chakras and, I didn't intentionally do this. It just kind of happened. But what happened was my creative energy, it felt like it went from this is what it felt like. It felt like it went from my womb up to my heart. And I can't really explain that. And I haven't talked to like a yoga master about that. I'm just telling you, that's my experience. Now I do teach yoga, but I can't really explain what that is. I'm just telling you what happened. And that's a very different place to live from. Because I moved into that space and what I discovered was I had bindings around my heart from the past. And as I kind of came into that space and worked in that space, those bindings started flying off and my ability to find joy and really stop pushing in life and just kind of like take it all in instead of pushing through it. That became a kind of a real shift. And part of that was being able to release the ancestral burden.
It's interesting. It's beautiful how you say the bindings of our heart that we think comes from childhood or comes from just the life we've lived, and it's interesting that you say you had to clear your ancestral energies as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll give you some context with that. The first time that I did the work, but I did a group ancestral clearing in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, back in like 2015 or 16. And it's kind of a small town and a lovely little town and very interestingly, an indigenous woman from Minnesota was there and showed up at this event. And there were like 40 people in the room, but this was one person. And what happened with her was very interesting. She was probably in her 80s. So in an ancestor clearing in a group setting, everybody each person wants to work on something, that raise their hand and we work on that. And you'll get a sense of it a little bit later. But we work on the issue that they bring in and everybody's lineage gets cleared because we all have the same stuff somewhere along the line, right? Anyway, we get partway through the group and she raises her hand and we did the work and you could just see her relax. It was very interesting. And after the session was over and everybody was leaving, I was at the door saying goodbye to everybody. And she came up to me and she said, "Thank you so much. I never knew how much I carried on my heart until tonight when I was able to release it." And I was like, I'm still blown away by that statement. It was very powerful. So that was an experience with with an indigenous person. I was not raised in indigenous culture, but I became very interested and have sat in indigenous and BIPOC communities ever since, learning about what's happening there. And in kind of traditional U.S. European colonial culture, we really focus on separation, and that's kind of where we are. It's like there's your thing and my thing, and that's our focus. And so that it would be about, in terms of ancestral clearing, it would just like your question was, well, how do we tell it's ancestral? Well, in indigenous culture, it's all together. The ancestor, we don't talk about trauma. We talk about intergenerational trauma. Those two words go together whenever trauma is talked about. So it's a different focus. It's a different perspective.
So my trauma, they believe my trauma I have is intergenerational. It's just, I didn't just show up with it. It happened over generations, which we now know is true.
Yeah. I mean, there was a woman named Yehuda who did research on descendants of survivors of the Holocaust versus people that didn't have that experience. And she literally found that they process stress hormones differently. She's done the science on it. And I was excited to see that as a scientist. I was like, yes, they're doing the work. They're showing us. But spiritual teachers have been telling us for thousands of years that we come into this life with the gifts and burdens of our ancestors.
Talk to me about ancestral burdens. You've mentioned that concept. What is that?
Sure. The most common things that I have come across in this work is scarcity mentality. There's not enough. I can't pay my bills at the end of the month, or I'm not enough. I mean, it's got many aspects of it. So there's the scarcity thing. There's also our drive for competition and our trying to grab at resources. That's got a root in that scarcity thing. There's not enough. I have to grab what I can. Right?
This whole capital system of I need a win over you.
Yeah.
I need to have it all.
Yeah. That's root. And also, as I mentioned, the human burden of I'm separate from. That we forget that we're all part of the whole. And now we've got a problem because now I'm separate from God, and now we're off to the races in all kinds of issues, right? So these are the kinds of things that lead to war.
I want to go deeper into the competition.
Okay.
Moment of, because personally, and you said a lot in the patriarchy, and I think the patriarchy is probably outdated by now, but there's no other model to replace it yet. And I think even men are tired of the go and grab and do. How is that ancestral? How does it show up in this world today? How do we heal? I don't like calling the wound, because then it makes it like we're judging it. It just is. But how did it happen that we get to this point today where we're all so separate from each other? Everybody is competing with the other person for what it's perceived to be finite resources. Can you lean into the ancestral aspects of that? Go as deep as you want.
Sure. Yeah, I actually, when I wrote a book, The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. And the first draft of it was, I don't know, 150,000 words. And the editor I went with was like, nobody's going to read 150,000 words. You got to cut it in half. And I was like, what? But one of the chapters in there, which ended up being cut, was how did we get here? How did we get here? Right? That was like the whole chapter. And I really spent some time on that. I have a background in biology and evolutionary biology. So I have a tendency to like, well, where did this start? Right, actually. And I see it starting, if you look at the great apes, all the apes, all that part of the animal kingdom, except the bonobos, have this competition. It's competitive. If you looked at You look at the bees and the ants and the social insects, they're all cooperative. They're amazing. But the monkeys, the apes, it's a different thing in terms of tribes and fighting with one another and fighting over resources. So you can look at that from that point of view and say, oh, we've had this for a while, right? Now, I see the bonobos as it's like, well, how come they're different? And I haven't quite figured out what that is yet, but I'm just saying, like, they're much more loving and communal. They don't go attack other tribes and stuff. They don't have that gregarious kind of. So what I see in that is there's actually a model in nature, that's not insects, like, right, but there's a model in nature of mammals getting along, that in terms of that are close to humans. Like, I'm not talking about elephants, I'm talking about primates, right? There's actually a model in the primates where there's cooperation, higher level of cooperation. So I'm like, it's possible. So that gave me hope. But when you look at far back, way, way, way far back, we've been competing for resources as far as you can go back. We've been competing as far as we can tell from the records that we can piece together. So it's kind of in our programming. It doesn't mean it's required to be there. It's just that it's a tendency, and we have the power to evolve beyond our current biology. It's just a matter of, like, what are our choices and what perspective are we going to come with?
And it's undoing thousands of years of.
Okay, but the infinite is the infinite. So all possibility lives in the present moment. All possibilities. So including, we can fix it like that. We can shift it like that. So I'm just like, the infinite is the infinite. And my poor mind is very limited. I can't even imagine infinite because my mind is limited. But I can conceptualize the possibility. Yeah.
So, yes. So in the quantum realm, it can happen like you said,
Sure.
like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least that's good news. So there's
It is good news.
you don't have every day time to be stuck like this.
And let me share something else with you that I just heard. I was just listening to Richard Rohr speak with Oprah on Universal Christ. You can find it on YouTube. Father Richard Rohr speaking with Oprah on the Universal Christ. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, I'll quote him as closely as I can. We need to get to a point where we're longing for radical unity instead of being focused on our diversity. And in the sense that, and he said something like, we're so focused, we're so scattered apart right now. It's like Humpty Dumpty scattered into 1,000 pieces. And how are we going to get that back together? So that was very cool to me, because he's looking at the unity. He's focused on the oneness, right? Which is, we're not doing that in this current day. The patriarchy is all about duality, this and that, right and wrong, left and right, up and down. It's all like that. We need to get to the oneness. And what I love about, another thing we can bring in here is, when you think about duality, it's in geometry, it's a line, which is kind of unstable. You add one point and you have a triangle. And what is that one point? Neutrality. So you've got positive, negative, neutral. And now you've got a stable structure. And you've got an actual, like, you've got a pyramid happening, and you've got a oneness. So the answer to your question, I feel, is like, we need to change our perspective. And I think we also need to move from the mind into the heart, and allow the heart to lead the mind and not the other way around.
It is crazy if we look how our mind controls and how we've been taught. Look at the facts, and nobody even checks in with their heart anymore when they have a decision to make. I just want to track back the oneness. I think, to me, the beauty and the miracle of living in this time is that we're having those conversations. Whereas a couple of years ago, the concept of oneness was, I don't even know if it was it was just this duality of me and you, how separate we are. So I'm so happy to see more and more conversation about the oneness, and that all aspects of each other and all aspects of the big unity of everything. And I hope more people will bring that forth to the world and educate and teach to grow compassion in the world.
Yeah. I'll give you another example of how we're connected, and this is just me and what my mind does when I get into this space. So, I breathe air, and then I breathe in oxygen, and I exhale. We all exhale carbon dioxide, and the trees take in the CO2 and they put out oxygen. So we're shifting. We're actually living in one another. We're living in one another with the trees and the plants. Well, I had to go and get a plant science major and live with hang out in a garden for years for all that to land as a concept, not in the mind, but embodied. Get it in every cell of my body. That's a completely different experience than learning in college in a lecture. Actually understanding that as an embodied reality is pretty special. And then when you look at something like how the human body processes sugars and how plants process sugars, same metabolic pathway.
Really?
This is why, I just it's all there. It's everywhere. Oneness is everywhere. It's just a matter of do I have my eyes on today? Where am I looking?
That's fascinating. And yeah, just the perspective, like you said, we need to start changing our perspective of that we are fitting in with nature and nature with us and all one. Talk to me about your book, The Chronic Pain.
Sure. Yeah. So I
think you healed yourself from chronic pain, and I'm more focused, thinking as you get older, you just have more pains. You sleep and you wake up in the morning and there's pain, but there's a lot of people with literal body pains and chronic pains that's debilitating. And you healed yourself and you wrote a book.
Well, I had a lot of help. Just and
So you healed yourself, assuming that there's a village behind, around.
Yeah. I had a lot of help, and that was really me getting aligned with Creator finally for once, but some of that was releasing the burden that I had, but ancestral burden was part of it. First of all, chronic pain is any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial. It's all the same to the brain sending a signal. It hurts. So a broken bone and a broken heart, same signal. It hurts to the brain. The brain can't tell the difference.
When we think of pain, I always just think of physical pain. I never thought of emotional and other pains, mental pain.
Yeah, it's all the brain sees it all the same. And it's when the brain is in chronic pain 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more, the brain is changed by that experience, remembering that the brain is this amazing, sensitive, responsive organ that whatever is happening in the moment, it's responding to it. In chronic pain, we have this thing in the body. It's part of how we're built called the stress response, which is kind of a collection of physiological, biological, psychological things that happen when we meet a threat in the world. All these things happen and we meet the threat's over, stress response goes back into the off position. In chronic pain, the stress response gets stuck in the on position. And now we're creating all kinds of stress hormones all the time. The brain is changed by that. And we become dysregulated all the time. We become more negative. We already have a little bit of a negative bias, just kind of keep us safe in the world, become quite negative because it affects the emotional center in the brain. And there's chronic pain patients they never tell the truth. They're always either complaining all the time or they don't say anything at all. And neither one of those things is actually the truth, right? Because it's a manifestation of a brain on chronic pain. Also, another thing that happens is we have memory issues. We can't remember, like, what did I just do with my keys? I just had them, like that kind of stuff. And also, I just want to bring in, you said as we get older, we get pains and stuff. Well, there's this thing called allostatic load, which is a measure of how much stress we're carrying. And when our allostatic load gets too high, then now the whole system reacts in chronic pain. We could also call it chronic stress. They're equivalent. So, as we get older, if chronic pain is starting to show up, you've got a high allostatic load and your nervous system's dysregulated, and you need to learn how to breathe and meditate and not run into the next moment and stay here, which has pretty much been my practice since I've been healing. So I wrote this book. It's different than other chronic pain books in that, first of all, it's got ancestral clearing in it, among other things. I wanted doctors, nurses, family members, and friends, and I wanted chronic pain people as well, patients as well, sufferers as well. I wanted to speak to the voice inside the head of a chronic pain sufferer, what it sounds like, which is why I did that whole thing about competition. Like I had a whole piece on, because that's a frequency that our nervous system's running at, right? And that can, when we're doing that, we're hypervigilant. If we can't get enough, or we keep driving, that's a recipe for chronic stress, which is why it was in the book in the first place. But I wanted to bring in what's happening in the mind of a chronic pain sufferer, and that really hasn't, as far as I know, hasn't been addressed in the other chronic pain books out there. They're great books. It's just that this is a little bit different view, and it's not a big book, and it's actually a follow-up to Dr. Peter Prescott, his book, Conquer Chronic Pain, an Innovative Mind-Body Approach. He was the doctor that I finally found that understood the nature of chronic pain and helped me. He guided me into my own. He would never say he healed me. He would say he guided me into my own healing.
Your book up as well, so we can just see.
Yeah. The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power, which is a follow-up to his. His is the doctory, researchery one, and mine is like, this is the patient manual. And for the doctors, the patient manual for the doctors too, in terms of like, oh, this is how you handle a chronic pain patient.
So if the chronic pain mind isn't in the book, what do we need to know about the mind of a chronic?
Yeah. So remember we talked about the hypervigilance and the negative, right? Well, that creates an orientation. And when you have chronic pain, we get in what I call the cycle of suffering. This is what the mind, it gets in a loop. It gets in this loop, and it's actually not just a loop, it's a negative spiral, which is why chronic pain is so toxic, right? We really need to address it. And that spiral, we get pain and we feel a sense of disconnection because we can't share it with somebody else. It's a very singular experience. So now we're isolated.
I'm complaining all the time about all my pain, and so you just keep quiet.
Well, you're trying to connect, but you really can't. You can't really share it, but that's a good point. That's an aspect of why there's a lot of complaint. And then we judge the pain as bad, which is a whole nother chapter, by the way. So judging the pain as bad. So now we're isolated. We've judged our experience as bad instead of neutral or just information, by the way. And now we've gotten attached to it because we've called it bad, and we're in this space, and now we try and control it, but we can't. And so we get a resentment, and then we get more isolated. Nobody understands me, and we judge it as, this is really horrible now. And we get more and more attached, and we just go into this cycle. And it's really toxic. The only reason that I know that exists is because I caught myself doing it. And I was like, oh my God, there's this thing happening here. What?
So you don't even really are conscious about how your mind is.
No,
doing this.
No, I had to get on the other side of chronic pain and start And my early recovery was when I actually saw myself doing this. I slipped back into the chronic pain cycle for a minute, and for over like a sore neck. I had a neck spasm, and I went into that. And I had enough meditation and enough clarity of mind in my experience at that time to be able to look at what I was doing.
So would chronic pain always have an ancestral burden? Or
Well, that's a great question. Chronic pain, again, is a symptom of a nervous system that's dysregulated, a stress response that's out of balance. The cause of that's another question, right? I feel that our whole psyche around the concept of pain is bad, and it's certainly ancestral, that feeds that. And so really the message is, it's a very different experience with pain when you realize pain is actually information from the body. What are we going to do with it? One of my teachers and great friends, Guru Prem Singh Khalsa, says, pain is the currency of transformation. Be careful how you spend it. I love that so much.
yeah, because pain is information, is your body is just trying to tell you something. And I also think the pharmaceutical industry has done a great job of telling us pain is bad, take a painkiller, and we just shut our body's voice down, and we don't give our body the opportunity to talk to us.
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas,
And it's not just the pharmaceutical companies. When I was little, because I think really the pharmaceutical situation started in the 1950s, and I was born in 1954. My experience was, when I was a kid and a little, maybe first grade, second grade, kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, or whatever, little, playing with other kids, and there'd be like, somebody knock into somebody else or fall down, right? What would happen? The adults would rush to the area, and they would do everything they could to stop that pain as fast as possible. So what is the message? The subtext in that message is pain is bad. We got to do everything we can to get rid of it, which is the wrong. That's like not helpful.
we're trying to be good parents by taking the pain away. And we taught by our parents, our grandparents, like it's just how it's always been done. But I hear you. You never would let him feel the pain.
I had to figure this out for myself when I was an adult. Nobody ever said to me, pain is part of healing. Nobody ever said to me as a kid, yeah, it's going to hurt. Do your best to just accept that it's there. The body's trying to heal, and do your best to breathe and relax. Nobody said that. I had to learn that later.
We do everything we can to avoid pain on all levels.
Yeah, that's true.
This is gives me hope. Pain is part of healing. I'm gonna pain. I know. Okay, I'm healing.
It's another example of shifting the perspective.
Yeah,
the power of shifting perspective can change your whole experience.
Welcome the pain and the story it's telling you, because then you can.
Well, I hear you on that, and I've actually considered that viewpoint, and I'm like, no, I'm not befriending pain particularly.
Okay.
But I sure got curious about it, because I knew there was information in there, and I was like, well, what's the message? What's the opportunity for me? But it wasn't like I didn't want to have a relationship of that, a good relationship or a bad relationship. I just wanted to get to neutral with this thing. And the most neutral I could get was, I see that there's information. What's the information here for me? That was the best way for me to approach the problem.
And if I may ask, like how did you mention you had to let ancestral burdens go? Was that how big portion of finding neutral? I think because for you.
Well, I'd love to give you guys an experience of it, but I'll share with you that my first experience of ancestor clearing was in Dr. Prescott's pain management program. There were 20 other people like me. We were all detoxing off medication that we've been on, prescription medication we've been on. And John Newton came in as a wellness practitioner in that program. That's where I first ran into the work. And he took us through this process. And of course, I'm in a strange environment. I have this science background. So I had my science hat on because I'm like, what's happening in this room? And I wanted to like quantify and measure everything because that was my orientation. So I'm going through this process, and I got halfway through it and I felt the room shift energetically. That's not normal for me. I don't normally see stuff like that or experience stuff like that. So I was like, well, that didn't happen. I'm detoxing. That's just my mind, playing tricks on me. And then I got farther into the process and I felt my pain start to dissolve. And I was like, well, that's real. That's not my mind. That's actually happening. And I was like, wow. And then when we were finished the process and John asked where everybody's pain levels were, all of our pain levels had dropped. And I was like, what? What happened in this room? I know something happened. Can we measure it? Can you repeat it? Let's run the experiment. Let's do a study. This is amazing. So that was my first experience of it. And that pain that came, that released in me was profound. I can't tell you exactly what the burden was that released, but I sure felt it. And it became, I took the first training that I could out of that program because once I got out of the pain management program, I took the first ancestral clearing training that John offered because I was like, this is amazing. I've got to teach this.
Absolutely fascinating and almost so sad that so little is being talked about on healing or helping people on a whole different realm and an energetic level.
Yeah. Well, there's actually more. It's becoming more mainstream, and I actually was part of a 6-book series called The Ancestors Within, which was our 6 books, and there's 25 authors in each book. I was in all the books, but it was amazing to me. We had about 80 different authors all together in that series that were all in the ancestral healing arts, and they all wrote a chapter. And I'm like, this is, not only are there 80 that are doing the work, but they want to write about it. It's great.
It's awesome. Again, we live in beautiful times where all of these things can come to light and can be brought forward, and beautiful angels. I want to talk, just to pivot away from that. We talked when we had a conversation earlier around the Magdalene wound and how that shows up in women. And I would love for you to explain that and what you see in the world.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a very powerful experience I had. I was having difficulty with someone in my life, a male figure in my life at the time. And I was just like, the relationship was just went contentious. And I was like, I'm not having this in this relationship. I'm just not. And so I went home and I started doing inner work on my stuff with men. I was like, I gotta clean this stuff up. I got stuff here I don't even know I have, right? So I started doing ancestor clearing around that specific aspect. And I had I don't get these. It's very unusual for me to have stuff like this, but it's what happened. One night I had this kind of lucid dream where I can't tell you when it was or who it was or where it was, but I know what happened, what it was. It was that moment when men stopped seeing women as sacred. I mean, I'm getting chills just remembering it. It's like, wow. And it was a very profound experience. And I thanked, I thanked Source and the creator for showing me that vision. And then I fell asleep and I got up the next morning and I dropped into this, I kind of dropped into this space and this beautiful prayer came out around the Magdalene wounds, which are 3 wounds that women carry. One is women and their sexuality. Another one is women standing in their power. And the third one is women in their intuition. So we've got these 3 wounds that we carry. And so I did an ancestral. So this prayer came in and I used that from time to time. I brought a different prayer for us to share today, but that's very powerful for clearing like all the stuff around women and what they wear and how they look. And I don't know. I actually, at this time in my life, I have not met one woman anywhere that hasn't had to do work around her body image. Like it's a thing.
Everything you just like, as the sexuality, how do we show up in our bodies? We disconnect with our bodies. We play small. We're scared of our own power or to show our power.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have had my own experiences with Magdalene, so it's phenomenal how, again, these conversations are coming up so that women can remember the feminine and remember to show up in power and in sovereignty.
Well, it's another example as well of where we started, which is that wound of separation. Like we've forgotten who we are. And so it's manifested as all these, you could call it a psychosis, because the way I cleared this thing around my grandmother was a Vogue model in the Roaring 20s. And she passed in the war, but she was killed in the Second World War. But there were pictures of her. We weren't allowed to talk about her because my mom just couldn't handle it. But there were pictures of her. And she was beautiful, obviously. But my experience of that whole thing was, it was made very clear to me early on that I did not measure up to her. And so I carried that as a thing until I got older. I was like, God, you're carrying this thing. And what's that all about? And my grandmother, one of the pictures that we have of her, she's almost got like a Mona Lisa smile. She's got that kind of little smile. And I always thought, her name is also Elizabeth. And I always thought she's got a secret, right? Well, I finally figured out what the secret was. And the secret is, we're all made in God's image. We're all aspects of God. And the secret to life is to step into that and own it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's a pity we have to go through so many things to get to the point where we can own it.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope as we turn into sages and go into our wisdom years, we can help the younger women, and the future generations doesn't have to suffer.
That's right.
They suffer, but be in duality or be so separate from oneness or neutrality.
Well, I think that's Father Richard Rohr's vision of longing for radical unity, right? That they'll be able to get there faster if we help them with that. And I'd love to do an ancestral clearing for your soul evolution for everyone, to give you an experience of what ancestral clearing is. It's actually a prayer practice. We're calling on Creator to help us release that which no longer serves us. And we do it with humility and gratitude. So we use the please and thank you. And we use the word forgive to mean offering up that which no longer serves us. So it's forgive. The word forgive is used in a very specific context. So I'd like everybody who's listening to this, and the replay is just as powerful as the live, because we're doing it all in the present moment. We can access the past, present, and future all at once in the present moment. Everyone listening to this, if you could just notice the sensation in your body, like I can feel my sitting bones and I can feel my feet, and I can feel a little pressure on my back from the chair. It's pressure on the chair. And I would give all that sensation about a 2, maybe a 2.5 out of 10 right now. Some people may be feeling a 10. Some people may be feeling something else. It's whatever you're feeling, just notice what it is, the sensation, not the emotion, the sensation underneath the emotion, and breathe normally and let these words pass over you. Divine Creator, all that you are, thank you for your infinite gifts and blessings. We ask humbly and gratefully that you please help us all versions of us, all our relationships, and all of our ancestors and all of their relationships throughout all space, time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations. For any hurts and wrongs done to us, any hurts and wrongs we did to others, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and any time we turned hurt into ourselves. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all the imprints of ancestral trauma from wars, enslavement, genocide, displacement, oppression, or any injustice or other hardship that was never acknowledged, processed, or healed. For all the pain of losing our homeland, culture, language, and ways of life, and the grief of being severed from our ancestral identity. For the impact of poverty, famine, deprivation, and economic collapse, and for the scarcity mindsets born from them. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For any and all secrets, the betrayals, the hidden shames, and unspoken truths that created a legacy of silence, mistrust, and confusion, and how it weighed on us. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all patterns of abuse, physical, emotional, spiritual, sexual, financial, and any empathic hurts and wrongs, repeated across generations without acknowledgement, justice, or repair. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For all abandonment wounds, for the pain of exile, when we or our ancestors were cast out from the community, the family, or belonging in any other way for who we were or what we believed. When parents, caregivers, or loved ones were physically, emotionally, or spiritually unavailable, or left altogether. For survival-based parenting, when fear, control, and trauma shaped the way we were raised as children, leaving love conditional or absent altogether. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all the burden we carry from religious persecution, distortion, or control, and for when spiritual authority was used to punish, manipulate, or separate us from the truth. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all patterns of addiction in the lineage, substances, work, control, food, money, and relationships that numbed pain from deepened suffering, for the wounds of medical trauma, injury, chronic illness, or mistreatment that broke trust in the body, in healing, or in the systems meant to care for us. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all relational betrayal trauma, infidelity, abandonment, or emotional neglect, and for the patterns of mistrust they imprinted in our families and in us. For all enmeshment, codependency, and blurred boundaries where individuality was unsafe or punished. For the wounding of patriarchal oppression, where women's voices, rights, and sacred gifts were silenced, devalued, persecuted, or erased altogether. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, everyone involved directly or indirectly. Please and thank you. For every time grief was avoided, denied, or forbidden to be expressed, leaving it frozen in our hearts and carried forward, and for generations of unspent tears that followed into the lineage down to us. For all intergenerational shame, for the masks we wore, the truths we hid, and the self-worth that was diminished across generations. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For every time our sacred connection to Source was lost, blocked, or replaced with fear, control, or other limiting beliefs about who we truly are. Please help us all forgive ourselves and forgive each other, please, and thank you. For the times we hardened and armored our hearts to the world because of what happened to us, for all it meant to us, about ourselves, others, the community, life, and even you, Creator. For the times we lost faith in ourselves, turned our backs on others and you, for the times others turned on or their backs on us and lost faith in us. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please and thank you. For any time we acted in such a way that we lost compassion for ourselves, judged ourselves unforgivable, for any time others lost compassion for us and held unfailing resentment towards us. and for any time we were unable to release our unhealthy attachments to the past. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. Please help us release each other and release ourselves for all that happened, no matter what it was, for once and for all. Please and thank you. Please help us know deeply and always for ourselves the love that we are, experience its constancy, and feel ourselves expand into its vast, infinite field. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. And just taking a nice big breath in, let it out, and notice how that feels compared to where you started.
There's a lot in my heart, a lot
Yeah.
of heart space, and even throat. This energy moved. There was a lot of energy
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It'll probably keep moving. It'll probably keep moving for the next day or so. It was a lot. Some people may be feeling a little heat from that. And we call that the alchemy of transformation. The body's actually releasing the stuff that was stuck in the body, and it comes out as a little flush of heat. You'll feel it energetically, but you'll feel a little heat with it too sometimes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Yeah, I love doing this. And we do, of course, I do private sessions on this, on people specific things, but I do monthly group things as well. And it's probably one of my favorite things in the world to do.
I mean, it must be, I feel so calm right now. It's pretty impactful. It's like, I have no words. My words just stop to have a conversation with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, well, it'll definitely shift our reality, because our nervous system, it was used to the burden that we were carrying, and we just helped it release a whole bunch. So now we're trying to find a new normal, and it takes a minute.
I mean, just listening to every burden that you lifted up, we don't even see that as, it's just life. We don't even see that as almost like a burden anymore. And I can't think of a more beautiful way to thank you and this, our conversation. And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Hilda. I'm so grateful for your platform and to be a part of it.